Welcome to Dialogue. I'm Hamid Shirvani, President of California State University Stanislaus, and your host for this program. Dialogue features interviews with community leaders, elected officials, faculty, students, and friends of the university. Today I'm pleased to be joined by California Senator Anthony Cannella. Senator Cannella, a Republican, was elected in November 2010. He currently serves as chairman of the State Agriculture Committee and vice chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee. Prior to his election to the legislature, Senator Cannella served in his hometown of Ceres on the Planning Commission and for 2 terms as mayor. He is also an area business owner, lifelong Central Valley resident, and a good friend to us here at CSU Stanislaus. Senator Cannella, welcome.
Thank you very much.
We're delighted to have you.
Thank you.
Let me start by acknowledging the fact that you were elected in November to represent the people in the 12th district, 12th Senate district, I must say, in California legislature. Do you mind taking a few minutes and sharing with us your background and your views?
Sure. I was raised in the Central Valley, actually in the city of Ceres. I attended school there, graduated from Ceres High School. I went away to college, UC Davis, so I'm a product of the UC system in California. And then I came back to Ceres to start a business and raise my family. I currently am married and I have 4 small children. And I continue to live in Ceres. And I love Ceres. I love the Central Valley. And so it's a great honor for me to serve in the state Senate. I was raised in a family that put a high priority on public service. My father, Sal Cannella, served at various levels of government, and he served at the state assembly. And I followed a similar path where I served at various levels of government in Ceres, and then, as you mentioned, was elected to the state Senate in November of last year. And so it's a great honor for me to represent the people that I love and respect, and it's a great honor for me to currently serve in the state Senate, and I look forward to all the things that we're going to be able to accomplish in the Senate over this term.
That's wonderful. We're very much appreciated. Well, now from November of 2010 up to now, you've been in Sacramento for a while. So why don't you give us your first impression of Sacramento?
Sure. I have served now for about 8 months, and I'm a product of local government, and I'm also a business owner, as you mentioned, and so I have a very pragmatic view of things. In my opinion, it's not about ideology; it's about getting things done and representing, the folks that you were elected to represent. So, my first impression, fresh off local government, was a little surprised that Sacramento is so polarized and paralyzed. Ultimately, you've got both parties, and they have their very strong ideological views, and it's very hard to get them out of those camps. I have a different background. I'm used to looking at things from many different sides, and so from my perspective, I was engaged right away at the table. Look, I'm there to represent the people, and so anytime a topic comes up, I wanted to get into the mix. But it's interesting to see the partisanship and then also just from the business world. For me, I make a lot of business decisions because I have to as a business person. You do that or you go out of business. And it seems a lot of things that are done in Sacramento are based on emotion, not on business sense. Now, of course, emotion is important, and we can't lose that human side of our political decisions. But ultimately, if you can't afford a particular course of action, then I don't think it's wise to go down that. If you think a program's important, you need to find the revenue base to accommodate those very important programs. And really, that calculation really isn't done at the state level, in my estimation. I'm also surprised that a freshman senator, I believe I was sworn in December, the governor was sworn in January, and my ability to engage in budget discussions, because there were very few that were actually engaged in it. And here I am, freshly elected, still finding my way around the Capitol, and I'm involved in these very serious discussions with the governor and his administration. And I was surprised, honestly, that not that I was a part, because that's what I was elected to do, but that were so many that chose not to be a part. So I thought that was, I was a little disappointed in that, quite frankly.
That's very interesting. Speaking of state budget, as you know, obviously, this is a subject that is very near and dear to me because it has profound impact on our campus and higher education and all institutions of higher education. Well, would you share with us the story of the budget process, which, at least from our perspective, although we have a budget, we are quite concerned about it because it's not a closed chapter, as I'm sure you're concerned about it.
Right.
So if you just share with us, because it was a long process.
It was.
And particularly for our viewers that would be very interested to know.
Sure. So again, I was sworn in December, the governor was sworn in January, and he came out with his approach, and he said, look, I want to have half cuts and half extension of current taxes. And so most in my party said, no, we're not going to engage in that. We're not going to talk about taxes. I looked at it from a different angle. I said, look, I want to be part of the solution. I'm going to engage the governor in talking about not only what he wants, which is the taxes, but what I want, which is regulatory and structural government reform that keeps us from ever getting into this problem again. Because yes, we are in a recession, but I also would argue that we've made a lot of bad choices over the last 10 years or so, which put us in this, which compounded the problem. So there were a few of us, 5 senators, and we were called the GOP 5. I probably could have thought of a better name, but that's what we were called. And we really got into the details. And we didn't talk really about the taxes. The governor wanted to check in with the people, have them vote for the taxes, and I understood that. But in 2009, when the legislature voted for these taxes, they said, look, we're going to check in with the public. We're going to unilaterally increase these taxes, and we're going to come up with a plan to all of Californians to show that this is a temporary tax. We're going to fix the mess that we're in, and then these taxes will expire. And we're going to let the people vote on it, because I think the taxes were in place for a year, and then they wanted the people to vote on it, which would extend it for 5 years. But they promised a plan. Well, it went on the ballot, there was no plan, and they were turned down almost on a 2-to-1 margin. People said, look, we don't want to be taxed. So my view was, look, if you promised a solution, you should offer a solution. You cannot go back to the public with, you either vote for taxes or we're going to fall off a cliff. So what we really focused on were reforms. We focused on pension reform. We focused on a spending cap, which prioritized education, by the way. It was outside the cap. We focused on regulatory reform, and we focused on CEQA reform, which is the California Environmental Quality Act. Because we felt that those issues were creating the burden on the state, which created the problem that we were faced with. And if the people saw the plan and recognized that under our reforms, the money that was raised in the additional taxes would go and pay off the budgetary debt. So basically, there's been overspending in the state for the last 10 years. We do have a problem. We've identified $40 billion of budgetary debt. We said, look, we're going to limit the growth of government to about 3% per year with our cap. We're going to then take any additional revenue that's brought in through taxes or a growth in the economy, and we're going to pay off that budgetary debt. Now, that would do a number of things. Number one, we would get a better bond rating, because right now we have the lowest bond rating in the nation because we have such high debt. So by paying off the budgetary debt, our bond rating would increase, would become better. So when we do bond, and we do bond for a lot of important things like highways and school construction and various things, we will pay less in interest because we have a better bond rating. So on the natural, it would fix things. Secondly, we've identified about $20 billion in debt to education through deferrals or through maintenance factor. So we would not only exempt education from our cap, it can continue to grow based on its Prop 98 guarantee, which is roughly 50% of the general fund, but we'd also pay back all the money that was taken from education over the last 10 years. We estimated that 10-year cap, we would be able to solve all those problems, and then we would transition into a softer cap, which is a rainy day reserve. So very important governmental reforms, and that would, I think, right-size government. The pension would be a hybrid and would really reduce the state's liability for future. Would all be based on new hires, would not apply to existing employees, new hires, and it would substantially reduce our burden when it comes to pensions. And by the way, this pension plan was loosely based off the state of Washington's pension system. So it has a proven track record. So those are the governmental reforms. The regulatory reforms are the reforms we focused on to get people back to work. And that's not getting rid of all regulations, because some folks I talk to, they say, we don't want regulations. Well, they say that until they get on a cruise ship that doesn't have enough life rafts. Then they want regulations. So it's not the regulations that are bad. It's the process that we go through to implement regulations. So our proposal says, when we pass a law that, first of all, we'll know what the cost of the economy will be, so we'll make an informed decisions as legislators. But secondly, when it goes to these regulatory agencies to implement them through new regulations, they would have their preferred alternative plus other alternatives. They'd have to consider other alternatives. And they would do an economic impact analysis, and then they would have to choose the one that's least impactful to the economy, either because less jobs lost, or less taxes paid, or less fees paid. If they choose not to do that, for some reason they have to do a benefit cost analysis, because maybe the benefits so far outweigh the cost that you want to go with the more expensive one. So, and then again, this is all on new regulations. So it's common sense regulations. And then on the CEQA stuff, it was really just to end the abuses of CEQA. CEQA is a great document. It's a great process that we use to identify impacts to projects, but we just want to get rid of the abuses, because what happens is, even in green technology, which is very important to the state and very important for our future use of energy and demand on energy, we need those, but they're being caught up in the same CEQA lawsuit abuses as everybody else. So we really focused on the reform. We said, Governor, you put our reforms on the ballot, we'll put your taxes on the ballot, we'll let the people vote. Well, ultimately at the end of the day, the stakeholders from the majority party standpoint weren't excited about some of the CEQA reforms and the pension reforms and the spending cap, and so the deal couldn't be reached. So it's very unfortunate, but these are still very important topics, and these are things, before any more tax measures go on the ballot, the people are going to demand that they know that they've got a path out of this mess, and we believe through our reforms they have that.
Well, I very much appreciate this. This is a very elaborate explanation, but what do you think is going to happen with the budget?
Well, I think that you're right. So when the governor put out his budget in January, he said that we need about $12 billion in revenue. Okay, so we worked very hard, and then in May, his May revise came out, and he found around $7.5 billion of that revenue. So now we're down to about $4.5 billion. Well, when discussions fell apart, he found another $4 billion. So if you look at from where the governor started in January to what ultimately the budget the second budget that was adopted, the first one was vetoed, they found the additional $12 billion. Now, I would say I'm very suspect of any revenues that are found in one day, especially when it's $4 billion and it's based on a projection. So I believe that in January, we'll be back at the table talking about these issues. We haven't solved the problems. We haven't dealt with the issues. So we'll be ready. I know our group, the GOP5, will be ready to engage the governor again to move our very important reforms, and then once again talks about his desire for the revenue. So I think that the budget won't stand.
I hope that this next budget discussion, and if there is going to be any budget cuts, the universities would be exempted, because we really are bare-boned from every aspect.
I agree. I mean, the universities have been cut tremendously. And really, in the valley, the only way we're going to get ourselves out of this economic, mess that we're in is by having a highly educated population, and it's through CSU and other UC Merced and other area schools that are really going to, I think, fix the problem. So you're right. We've got to in general, we have to prioritize our spending in the state of California.
Actually, this is a very good topic. I'm sure our viewers would be interested, as I know about your views, but I'm sure for our audience. I was wondering, kind of, what's your overall view about higher education, major force behind economic development?
Absolutely. Let me just give you a personal experience.
Sure.
My father, he served in politics, but he was also in the trades. He was a tool and die maker. My mom didn't graduate from college. My dad didn't graduate from college. I am the first member of my family to graduate from college. I had the opportunity to go to UC Davis. I graduated from UC Davis. I earned a degree in civil engineering, and quite frankly, that changed my life. The experience, not only the education that I received in civil engineering, which was very helpful, but also just the experience to go through college and develop just the confidence that it gave me to apply understand that if I apply myself, there's really the sky's the limit in what I can achieve, and really that really gave me a significant boost in what I wanted to accomplish in life. And I was the first to go through college. I will not be the last. All my children will go through college, and because it's such a priority to myself and my wife. Well, that opportunity should be provided to every child that lives in our state, because again, we've had, as my former job as the mayor of Ceres, and I served on the Alliance, and we talked about bringing businesses in. Well, one of the hindrances to bringing businesses into the area is we just don't have an overall educated workforce. So we don't have enough people that live here in the college degrees. And in fact, I heard a statistic that in the United States, people that have a college degree, the unemployment rate's 5%. For people who don't have a college degree, it's in double digits. So there's clearly a line between a higher education and gainful employment, and really a higher earning potential. So it's an absolute priority for me, and I work with my colleagues up in Sacramento and continue to give them my life experiences and how it changed my life, and it's got to be a priority for the state.
Well, we're 100% with you, as I'm sure you said it. The education is the foundation of democracy and economic prosperity, and in Central Valley, as you mentioned, one of the reasons for very high unemployment is the fact that the number of holders of a college degree are proportionately is very low. It's about 25% versus many parts of the country, which are more than 30%. And even 25% is sliding down. We're doing our best, and we are committed in producing the educated workforce. As you know, we are doing actually producing a large number of teachers in this community, social workers, the healthcare professionals, accountants, business leaders, a large number of artists from every profession that you think, a large number of them. And we want to continue doing that, and we are expanding in other areas as well. And as a product of UC, which is one of the institutions of higher education in this state, you very eloquently elaborated their values. So we're really appreciative of all your support to higher education, and we hope you're going to advocate for us for the next cut and until we come out of these economic recessions. And we appreciate everything you're doing in the legislature for us. But before closing, I just wanted to move away from the politics and just, what's your hobby?
Well, I've got, as I mentioned, I have 4 children. I have a 10-year-old, I have 28-year-olds, and I have a 2-year-old. So most of my free time is engaged in their hobbies, which involve a lot of things. But when I'm not doing that and I'm not working, I'm a cyclist. I'm an outdoor enthusiast, so I like to ride my bike. I've competed in centuries, and just
wonderful, very
lengthy rides. It's my chance to get out and just kind of unwind and look at the beautiful area that is the Central Valley, and also get some exercise in. So any free time I do have is spent usually on my bike.
That's I think a lot of our viewers didn't know that, so that's a very good point. Well, we really appreciate again everything you're doing for us, and please keep us in mind. But I was still, since we have a little bit of time, is there anything that you want to share with our viewers regarding the future of California? Not the budget, but the future of California.
Well,
what's your vision?
Yeah, I am an eternal optimist, and although we are suffering in this state, and I would say proportionally higher than maybe some of the other states, I still think California is the greatest state in the greatest nation in the world. So I think we have unlimited opportunity and potential. And I think if you look back on the history of our state and some of the things that we've done, I think have given us advantage over other states and other parts of the world. But I do believe we're at a crossroad. I do believe that we need to change business as usual in the state of California. We need to put a focus on getting people back to work, because we have one of the highest unemployment rates in the United States. So this is California, the 8th largest economy in the world, and our unemployment rate's at the top. So I do believe we should be honest with ourselves, put party ideology aside, and really look at what the problems are. And I'm telling you, that's happening, because I work a lot with my colleagues in the majority party, and we're all saying the same thing. So the problems are very clear. They are. Now the solutions are different, because we all come from different, different experiences, and we look at life through different lenses. But we're starting to all hone in on, why do we have such high unemployment? Why are businesses leaving the state? And so there's a major focus, and I'm working with my colleagues on some select committees and just over lunches to try to figure that out, because I want my children, and again I have 4, to have the same experiences that I had, the same opportunities that I've had. I was able to go to public schools. I was able to graduate from Ceres High School. I was able to go to UC Davis, and I was able to pay, a fair price for tuition. I got an excellent degree. I was able to start a business, and although I'm not a wealthy person, I've done okay where I'm able to provide for my family. I was able to buy a house in the city I grew up in. And unless we change the way we do business in the state, our children will not have the same opportunity. So I believe we will do that. I will believe that we will change things. I do believe things will get better, but it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take checking the egos at the door, coming together and having honest discussions about real problems. And it's going to take compromise. No relationship is successful without some form of compromise.
Absolutely.
And so that's my focus, and that's as long as I'm in the Senate, that's what I'll be advocating for.
We very much appreciate it. It would be interesting. Your whole approach, pragmatic approach to problem solving. I was wondering, can we be part of the solution? How can we help here in California State University, Stanislaus, or all higher education institutions? How can we help you?
Oh, absolutely. I think what we need to do, again, some of these problems, the problems are clear, okay? For example, the regulatory environment in the state, whether the regulations are good or bad, we've got so many institutions that are enforcing them. Sometimes they're duplicative. They don't make sense. Well, again, the solutions are harder. So I think if we could partner with the state college systems and the UC systems to help say, look, here's the problem. Bring the stakeholders together and really through a collaborative process determine the solutions. I think that would be very helpful, because the way legislation is done at the state, it's usually jammed through at a record pace, and there's not an opportunity for honest dialogue. So as we've had discussions before, I hope to partner with you and hold forums here and bring people that, again, it's not about getting on your soapbox and yelling out your ideology. It's about, look, what is the problem? What are potential solutions? And then kind of working on those solutions to develop legislation to address the structural problem. So I hope that we can partner in that area.
Well, we're very much looking forward. I want you to know that we are committed to economic development and partnership with the community, and we have had established numerous partnership with this community, and we are here to serve. This is our responsibility, and we're very proud of it, and we are very appreciative of all the support that we can get. So we'll be working with you, and you're going to be coming back for sure. But before closing, I would be remiss if I not ask you about the Washington. So about this, the kind of drama of the budget. Apparently is mirroring California, but much more complicated.
Yeah, it's, again, in California what happened was the governor had willing partners. There were sufficient votes to put the question to the voters. But ultimately it had to be compromised on both sides. It's not one side that compromises and the other side that doesn't budge is not a compromise. That's not the way you do business. So things fell apart because I would say the bases, wouldn't let the people operate. I was willing to the last day. I was willing. In Washington, again, it's a similar argument. You've got folks that think that we're heading towards a train wreck. We continue raising the debt limit. We continue spending. We continue borrowing. And they want to get that under control. And then you got another side that said, no, it's through more revenue. We don't have enough revenue. So it is a similar argument, but these are very fundamental questions that have to be addressed. But again, you've got to check the egos at the door and really have I think everybody has to be vulnerable. Everybody has to be willing to upset their base ultimately, and that will get the job done. And I know I was willing to do that, and I did that. And we need that same sort of commitment out of our folks in Washington.
I appreciate your comments. Again, one thing that suddenly came to me, and I'm sorry I didn't write it down, but would you like to comment on redistricting?
Oh, sure. We passed an initiative to make redistricting out of a nonpartisan commission. So in the past, it's been done by the legislature. And, it produced some districts that didn't seem right. They were very gerrymandered. So now it's been in the hands of a commission. And, honestly, they've done an okay job. It's still, I think to say that, they're going to take politics out of it, everybody's got their political position. So that's just what people carry. And to find somebody that's apolitical, I think that would be hard to find. So I think some of the districts are concerning to me. Again, they're cutting up communities of interest. It looks like certain incumbents are being protected. But overall, I think they've tried to do the best they can. They've tried to, work hard and be transparent. So, we'll have to see how it turns out. But I have ultimate faith in the voters, and this is the direction the voters wanted to go, and I support it.
Based on the fact that also you're the chair of the Agriculture Committee, is there any message you want to give our friends and viewers?
Sure. Agriculture in the state of California is a $35 billion industry. And that's just ag. In my district, it's about $6 billion. It's a major economic driver. So not only do we feed the world, but we also drive the economy in California. So it's my goal as chair of ag and as a state senator is to make sure that we're doing what we can to help them be successful. Now, of course, they have to play by the rules and, they have to do the things they have to do, but we shouldn't, put roadblocks up before them. So there are some very serious issues brewing that we're going to have to deal with that deal with ag. But, as ag goes, I believe so goes the state, and so we need to remember that. And not only do we want to talk about oil being economic security. Well, where we get our food is very important as well. If we're importing all of our food, that puts us in a very vulnerable state.
I agree with you, and I think I want to promise that next time you're here, we're going to devote the entire session to agriculture.
Great, I'll be ready.
And food sciences and whole food processing,
Great.
Which is very near and dear to us. Thank you so much, Senator Cannella. We really appreciate you being here with us. This has been Dialogue. Again, I'm Hamid Shirvani, President of California State University Stanislaus. My guest today has been California Senator Anthony Cannella. Thank you for watching. Please tune in the next time when I will welcome yet another guest positively influencing our region and community. Thank you.